And welcome to today's webinar, Eliminating Cost Overruns, Managing Budgets and Cost Codes for Greater Project Control. This webinar is brought to you by Graitec. My name is Misty Scott, and I am pleased to be your moderator today. As a reminder, you can find a schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar. All right. Went too fast for me. All right, before we get started, I did want to learn a little bit more about you guys. So if you have an opportunity, please take a moment to answer the poll questions. There's only 3 of them. They're right there on the right-hand side of your screen, and they will help us understand how we can best support you and your business. We're also excited to share we're offering a free trial of Graitec ERP Sync, newly named Agave Sync, along with our special promotion on training and services. So you guys can scan that right there on the screen, but I'm also going to display them on the screen for you guys at the very end during our Q&A section. All right. Very pleased to introduce our expert today. Emily is a seasoned BIM specialist and technical consultant for construction at Graitec. Emily brings 9 years of experience in the architecture and a deep understanding of BIM workflows, Revit, and Autodesk Construction Cloud, making her an expert in streamlining design and construction processes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Emily, and I'm going to turn it on over to you. Emily, I think you...
I'm on mute. Thank you. I thought I would change that before. Anyways, all right. So welcome, guys. Thank you, Misty, for the introduction. We're going to jump right in here. It's good to see everybody here. And we've got a few agenda items here. We're going to look at how best to accurately set up and manage your budget items so that the rest of the project goes as smoothly as you would like it to. And then we'll take a look at, the benefits of having that real-time financial data using an integration, how that can reduce manual work, and exactly what an integration using the Agave software might entail. So we have a Q&A, I think, area. So if you have questions, please ask them as we go. And we will have a Q&A session or time at the end for a bit of Q&A for those specifics. I won't be stopping mid to answer them like I might on some other days. So let's go. All right. So the first thing, no matter who you are, the first thing you need to consider in going to cost management is your budget code setup. No matter whether you're an owner, a GC, a subcontractor, this is the first thing you have to set up. But in setting that up, we have a few considerations that we have to take into account. Accounting software integration being probably the biggest one. So if you aren't yet, but are considering an accounting software integration, there's going to be some effects or some, knock-on effects that we need to consider. We have, and I'll get to these in more detail, multiple office locations. Do you have multiple locations that are, running projects? Are their budget codes going to be the same? Ooh, I went backwards one. There we go. What do your codes currently look like? Are they clean and up to date? Do they have a lot of old or junky codes in there? Do you have 2,000 codes and, the last 5 projects have only used, give or take 700 of them? Could you clean these up? And last but not least, are you considering any changes to that code structure or software? Do you hate your accounting software? Are you planning on going from a desktop to an online version of whatever you are currently using? These are all kind of things we want to take into account if you're planning on moving to cost, and if you have maybe already started using cost, but you're really starting to see the bigger picture of what you could do with this. So just to get into a little more detail, why is the accounting software so important? Why do I want to make that change? And if I'm going to be making a change, and et cetera, et cetera. The accounting software will have restrictions to the way that a code structure can be set up. So if you're planning on switching accounting softwares and we are going to be doing an integration with cost, we want to make that switch from, desktop to online before we start the integration. First of all, so you know how your accounting system, your new one, will work, and then you can answer all of the required questions that we are going to throw at you in an integration. But second of all, we don't want to integrate twice. Okay, so that integration process is quite, involved. So nobody wants to do that twice. Nobody has that kind of time or money. So any changes to your accounting software definitely have to come before you consider an integration. And then if you're going to stick with your current accounting software and you want to adjust your code structure because you've been using 16 divisions as was the standard for a long time, and now you're going to, expand and move into the 48 divisions. Well, we're going to need to get that set up before we think cost management. So those are really important things to consider, think long-term about, and get sorted out before. And if you need guidance on any of that, we are here to help with that. We cannot recommend clearly an accounting software that would be outside of our, best practices, but we can definitely show you what they can do for you, depending on which one you're going to choose. All right, so current codes and software, with these I've already covered. Changing anything, get that done before. And cost management itself, cost management on its own without the accounting software is extremely flexible. We can do whatever we want. And sometimes if you are already using a cost management and you're thinking, great, I've got my 12 divisions because I'm going, lot number, building, room, and then I'm getting to my actual budget item, construction code, CSI code. 99% of the time, your ERP system, your accounting system is not going to handle that number of divisions. At most, an accounting system I've seen right now will handle 3. Cost code, cost type, so, CSI code and some sort of labor or materials division, and in addition, often a sub-job. And this will depend on the accounting software. So cost management, flexible, restrictions are brought in from the other integrated softwares. Okay, so what can we do in our workflow once we've got that big, question mark sorted out and your codes are set, your accounting software is set, and we're going to start working in the system? All roads lead to the budget code. Everything you do in cost is going to get connected back to that budget code. If something goes wrong with the connection or the original code, nothing will work. Nothing. So, and then when we get our budget in there, to sub-item or not to sub-item. Okay, so I'll cover these next. So when I talk about the connection and all roads leading back to the budget or the budget codes, this kind of represents the general outline of what you do in cost. Now, I don't have change orders on here. Those attach to everything else. So the principle behind what I'm going to say now will also apply to a change order. That just got too busy here, so I kept it straightforward. So we start by setting up a budget in cost. That is the first thing you will do, whether it is synced in from your accounting system or built in cost and going the other direction. The budget starts the process. And then we take that budget and all of those line items in that budget, and we either transfer it directly to a main contract schedule of values, or we build a contract schedule of values on the upstream side, and we attach and link those main contract items or categories to your budget items. And that main contract schedule of value informs your upstream or draw package or payment application using the connections back to the budget code. So I know what I'm getting paid is affecting, a particular budget. Any expenses you incur on the project, payroll, from a hardware store, gas, whatever, Visa, all of those expenses will also get tied to a budget line. okay, and a budget code. And downstream, we take those budget codes and we make subcontracts out of them. We join them, we split them, or we one-to-one relationship to a contract. We make our subcontracts. And those subcontracts inform our subcontract payment applications. So this is sort of how it's supposed to work. And what that means, as far as those connections, the important part of this is the connections. Because as I'm collecting, 20 subcontract payment applications from my downstream workflow and accumulating expenses on my contracts, I often need to roll all of those up and into my payment applications, right? I need my detailed job cost reporting. I need to bill accurately to get paid accurately. And so if I have everything connected as it's supposed to be, I can, with a couple of clicks, aggregate all of these values and expenses into the appropriate line items, all attached to the budget code, onto my payment application. So it makes that downstream to upstream money workflow all connected through that budget code scenario. So this is how it should work. So where do I see this going wrong? People don't make the right connections. And I'd say this one right here is the most commonly forgotten, unknown connection. They develop a budget, and the budget is, their internal costs. They receive a main contract from an upstream party, and they build that into the system. But they do not connect the budget lines that they are budgeting for to the main contract. And I know the values between these two may be different. The main contract is $10 million you're getting paid for, but your budget hopefully is a decent amount less than that, so you've got some profit to work with. And so people sometimes think that this connection is unnecessary. But if I lose this connection and my budget codes don't inform my main contract and thus my payment application, the rest of this does not work. My expenses have nowhere to go on the upstream side of things. My subcontract payment application codes don't align with what is on my budget payment application. My upstream workflow to pull all that information, gone. And so we then have to do a lot of manual work to take this information and bring it into the payment application. Okay. So frankly, reenacting or fixing this broken connection or wasn't there to begin with connection is going to be easier than continually, month by month for the duration of the project, manually pulling that information up here. Okay. So this connection of everything is crucial to making your work happen. Okay, so that's just where I'm going to start and leave it for now. Everything is connected. We want it all connected. So now, to sub-item or not to sub-item. Autodesk and myself, we will recommend what is called a flat budget. Okay, this is my recommended workflow. But what we get a lot of requests for, and people get excited about, is the fact that we can take a main contract item and add all these little sub-items to it, right? And so our contract or our budget looks very small. But as you expand all of those individual items, they actually work out to have multiple items underneath it. And this 5.6 million is actually generated or accumulated through what I'm spending on pile caps and formwork and rebar and concrete and special foundation walls, etc. And it all rolls up to that 5.6 million. But so then if this is a lot of detail and it kind of summarizes into this, wouldn't that be the better option? No, because when I exit my edit mode, I lose the sub-items. All of a sudden, my sub-itemed and detailed budget becomes nothing but one or several large budget items, budget lines, and I now cannot track any of my costs to these specific items on their own. So, some key items and differences here. everything that I do, if I take all of those sub-items that I had wanted in there and make them as a full flat budget item with all of their same costs listed here, eventually I'm going to end up with the same monetary amount as for my budget. But now I can track my exact cost against special foundation walls specifically. I'm not tracking just concrete substructure as a giant line item. I get more detail out of flattening my budget than I would out of a very robust set of sub-items. Okay, so I can only track against the main budget item. All right. Next, when we build subcontracts out of our budget items, I can do a couple of things. I can take a one-to-one relationship. Special foundation walls becomes a single contract. I can group special foundation walls, grade beams, and slab on grade into one contract. Or I could take special foundation walls and break it out into 3 contracts. So now this is not a negative or a knock on this one. This actually, sub-items have a benefit to contracts. I can still be a little more granular here and break up and combine flat budget items into very specific contracts. I can break up and combine them all at once. I can combine 3 items, but yet use only a part of their value on a contract. So I can get really detailed, even with a flat budget. Now with a sub-item budget, if I take concrete substructure and I turn it into one contract, what does happen is all of these sub-items come into that contract as the subcontract schedule of values. So you essentially have that SOV now ready to, be adjusted by what you've budgeted this, but your buyout might, indicate different values. And so you already have this breakdown. You can go out to and see what the subcontractor is going to fill in for those values. So that is kind of a fun option, but it really is a minor benefit. Okay, so still flat budget wins. And last but not least, especially if you are a subcontractor or self-performing work that you would like to use and track your performance on those line items, flat budget is the only way to go. Performance tracking requires actual budget lines. We cannot track against sub-items under a budget item. And if that top budget item is something like a lump sum or just a number of hours, we cannot use that in performance tracking. Okay? Performance tracking does best when it is a unit of measure, because we can then track how many hours you spent installing that unit of measure. And that is what performance tracking does best and how it is going to work best. So sub-items, we lose our ability to use performance tracking in the forecast tool for those items buried in a larger lump sum item. Okay, so this is becoming more of a question, and the more people are jumping into performance tracking, this is going to come up again. All right, so how are we doing for time? Not bad. Okay, so I'm going to leave that budget side behind. We are going to talk about data. So with all of this data and the past, I'd say 10 years at least, we have been working on sharing data better within all of our systems. We've been trying to de-silo everybody, get everybody into something we call a common data environment, and it's working quite well. I think people are starting to really see the benefits of being able to share data faster, more accurately, fewer emails flying around with data that can be lost or misinterpreted or forgotten about. And so with cost, that the sharing of data is with your accounting system. Okay. Now, de-siloing everybody and bringing everybody into one software is not exactly what we're trying to do here. We are just trying to, because we don't want to bring our accountants, we don't want to say goodbye to your accounting software and come visit our not an accounting software project management accounting software. We don't want to take our PMs and put them in an accounting software exclusively. We want to bring them to a more holistic view of the project specific accounting. And we want to leave the accountants in their accounting system, which is what they do best. But we want the data to go back and forth where it is generated by the person who knows the most about it, and then transferred to the person who needs to do or further that information for project and company benefit. Okay, so we want to keep everybody in the loop, but we want to keep the person producing the most accurate data and give them the best tools for that. We want to reduce the number of time that data needs to be manually entered, thus reducing the duplication and potential errors that come from that manual entry and duplication of data. Okay, and a lot of this is going to be through an integration. So specifically, I'm going to talk about an integration using the Agave tools. And so here we go, some details. Sharing is caring, right? We want to enable data to move between the systems without a lot of manual effort. So the data that starts in either system needs to move to the other system automatically. Okay, so when it, let's say, reaches an executed status, poof, it moves to the other system because that's when it's reached its, there's going to be no more changes to it. We want to get approval workflows. So this is a cost thing. We can get approval workflows so that before it makes it to another system, the right people have their eyes on it and have that final say in approving it. And sometimes that does mean that accounting approves something in cost management before it goes back into the accounting system. Okay. And so we can get people from both systems still to collaborate, and occasionally, people are going to peek into another system. But now we only need that when exactly possible. All right. Now I'm going to mention the activity log a few times in the next few points. There is an activity log to see who did what and when. So hello auditors out there, this matters. Okay. We want each group, PMs, accountants, producing the data that is most important to them and that comes to them in its raw form, and they're going to enter it into the right system. And then workflows are going to ensure that data moves in the right direction for the opposite side. And everybody's going to see everything more or less at the same time. We have an activity log. I already mentioned that. Automatic document creation. So when we talk about who is doing what in which system, who is issuing documentation, who is stamping data, etc. In cost, we have automatic document creation. So you are not repeatedly entering, looking over at this screen to fill out your Excel or your Word document and then sending it off. And oops, I typed in a 6 instead of a 5. That ideally doesn't happen. If the budget is correct and all of those connections I talked about at the beginning are built out correctly, when you issue a contract document, that contract is going to pull the information that you filled out elsewhere that hopefully has had a few eyes on it and is correct. By the time that document gets created, there's no punching in the wrong value because we're drawing that value from the system, and it's going to go from your system to the document and out to the client, and from your system into the accounting system for your accounting team. So your finances on both sides should be A-okay. All right. No math, fewer Excel files. People still want those. They like that hands-on feeling. But it's like when we transitioned from paper to the computer, it takes a little while to get used to, but we can reduce the number of complex Excel files because it's going to be in the system, and we can then do our forensics in the system. Fewer emails, fewer lost files, fewer forgotten things when you're on site or on vacation and you forget to send something and somebody doesn't then record data, and it gets, all of a sudden we're missing a payment application from somebody because of bad information. If we can get them into cost and filling out their paperwork in cost holds onto it and moves it around, and we can always view it. Even if you're on vacation, your assistant PM can see that, even if they don't have access to your email. Okay? So we're bringing everybody together. We're making that information available to everybody. All right. Now, when we talk about an integration specifically, this one is just the Agave kind of workflow. We are taking information from Autodesk Build. We are moving it across and into one of many different accounting systems. Okay, these are just a few on the right-hand side. I think there's been more added even since this slide was made. So, connect with us, connect with Agave, figure out what your system is and what you want to sync across. Things can go in both directions, not all things. Some things will go in one direction, some things will go in another direction. So I think my last slide here is going to be our directional sync. So no matter what you have going, whichever accounting system you have working for you, a workflow is going to look somewhat like this. You're going to have your build objects and you're going to have your accounting software objects. And this is sample. It's kind of a mix of some of the options I've seen in all different accounting systems. Certain build objects are going to go into the accounting software. Okay. And this is part of the integration conversation is you will tell us, and we will also tell you what's possible, but you will tell us, you will tell Agave what is your ideal workflow, what information you'd like to take from Build and put into the accounting software. Where's the project going to start? Is it going to start in the accounting software and push to Build, or vice versa? Why could it go in either direction, and why would you want one or the other? Well, when I start a project in Autodesk Build, I put in a project name, a project number, and a project address. And that's pretty much all of the project-specific data that I put in. Now, when I start on a project in an accounting software, boy, there's a lot more information that is going to be required. So, who's got control of that project start? And, sometimes people, as soon as a project is potentially even going to be in the realm of thought, somebody starts it in accounting and gets that ready to go. And that's a great way. Then you can push your project then over to Build, and it's ready to go at the earliest stages of conception. Other times, somebody on the job site says, oh God, we got to get a Build project in like tomorrow, and accounting is going to need more time before that happens. Then we start it in Build. The trigger goes the other way. Accounting, sure, the project gets started in accounting, but then accounting has time to enter all of that additional information that Build doesn't really need to know. Okay, so things like that can go in either direction, and it's up to you to work with your integration specialist to figure that out. So there's the other direction. Could have clicked that earlier, but again, things can go in both directions. Now, there's a couple of items, and I'll just highlight expenses here. These really go in one direction. They come from your accounting software, and they go into Autodesk Build. They just track here as an actual expense against your Build project. Mostly because these accounting software elements are things that Build does not. Build does not handle time cards. It does not handle your timesheets, your paychecks. That's an accounting software. So we generate an expense or something for that as an expense in the accounting software, and we push that into Autodesk Build when it's ready. And Build just tracks that against the project, so you have an accurate sense. So all of this back and forth is really just meant to make sure that both sides of the equation have the data in almost real time. Syncs can be as quickly as 15 minutes or, maybe an hour, and up to a day. Okay, and so that's part of your integration. You're going to choose and decide on what those syncs are. And it's going to vary by the accounting software, by the integration software, etc. Okay, so just keep all of that in mind. And I've got 1 minute to spare, and I don't think I have any other slides for you. This is the first time I'm not going to talk way over. I tried to keep this a good length. And so, with all of that said, I'll turn it back over to Misty and or Q&A for everybody. So if you've got questions, pop them into the chat or the Q&A area, and we will those up for the next few minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emily. You are right on the dot with that, you guys. So I did put the free trial for Agave Sync on the screen, so you guys can literally just click that button on the screen. It'll take you right to it. I'll leave that up as we allow for some questions to come through. You guys can click on the right hand side of your screen where it says live chat, type any questions you have, and we can answer those. And then in a second here, I'll just give it a little bit. I'm going to put on the link for the training and services so you guys can take advantage of that as well. So, hey, Emily, if someone is interested in training and services, for training classes, can they do like a group of people? Do they have to do like one-on-one?
So training for cost is always a good idea. It's a really robust and complex software, so I highly recommend some training on that. Training for that, then, basically we do groups. I mean, groups of one company at a time. We would never try and split that. So we don't offer generic training for this, but we do offer we start with an admin training, we move into user training. Once all of your admin side is set up, we help you develop a project template. We get all of those settings and workflows up and running. And then we bring in users for a user training so that they get a nice, clean, working solution by the time they see it. So we work with your administrators, your accounting, everybody in the back end to get all your documents up and running, get all of your workflows sorted out, your formatting looks good, and then we bring it to your users and work through. Can be real time. A project you've already done, and we're going to try and recreate. We go through that in all sides of the training. So. We're working in your environment. We're working with your custom data, with your budgets and contracts and your workflows. So training with us is pretty custom, and I would say very handy. People who tend to not finish training or not buy enough hours or things like that, they definitely have more questions and they'll struggle a bit more. So if you are in cost management and struggling, please get in touch with someone, get some more hours, and get some help with that, because it's going to make your life a lot easier. They are releasing quarterly feature releases. So, I know a lot of people out there are requesting features. They're working on it. And so 4 times a year, 3 times a year, quarterly, 4 times a year, we are getting really great, small but great updates to the software. So if anybody's wondering, is this static? It's cloud software, so we're able to issue and work those small feature requests and things like that in as we go throughout the year. If you got trained a year ago, there might be stuff that you already are missing out on if you're not keeping up with the what's new, which is hard. It's this is my job, and it can be. There's just tons of new features. Some of them were announced today, so they'll be coming into effect very shortly. I don't know what they were yet because I had to miss that meeting, but I will know what they are. So we're looking at new features within a couple of weeks, towards the end of the month or next month. So already we're getting new stuff for this year.
Fantastic. Emily, thank you so much. Yeah, so the training's completely customizable. If there's one topic that you guys are like, hey, I just need a webinar to kind of look into it a little bit, let me know what those are. And if you're like, I really need to dig in deeper with that, we've got the training and services for you. So we're here to support you. We're here to serve you guys. Let us know what you need from us. If you have a chance, you can answer those poll questions. That'll give me an example of how I can support you. But I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I hope it was meaningful and impactful for you and your businesses. Emily, as always, it has been a joy. Thank you so much. But we did get a question. Yay. Okay, hold on. Before we close it down, Lawrence says, what techniques do you recommend to ensure final project costs are accurate within plus or minus 4%? such as risk assessment and contingency planning?
Ooh, that's quite the question.
I
All right.
know, it's a good one.
Can I see that written down somewhere? Yes, I do. Okay.
I can.
I start within. So, risk assessment, I'm going to say this is where forecasting probably comes into play, which we didn't really touch on today. But I mean, when you have your budget items, and this is where all roads lead to, your budget values, including forecasting. Each budget item can be forecasted out across the length of the project, and as you're working through, and let's say you've come through to a few months of actual costs against, several budget items, and you realize that you're spending more or less than what you had originally forecasted. They now have a feature that allows you to recount. They've had it for a little while, actually, frankly. It's almost a year now. That allows you to reforecast that line item based on actuals that you've incurred, so that you can take a look at, if you're spending less than what you anticipated on that line item, okay, then I can reforecast that line item and see my potential savings across the board. And if you want, you can publish that out to the system, and those savings then are kind of available for other people who are viewing the budget. You can also keep them and stash them away secret scroll style for, when you need to then, oh gosh, I'm spending more on this other budget line. Hey, look, my surplus from this one is actually going to help me feed that other overrun. And so you can start making those forecasting adjustments based on your, recurring costs, your actual costs coming in. And of course, you can consistently reforecast, out into the distance. So I hope, I'm plus and minus 4%. I know that's a goal. We have some variance columns that are going to show you what your variance is going to be on a particular budget item. But if you're looking for that, 4% or that specific value, we might need to make some custom columns in the budget area so that we can see your, that 4% and see if we're approaching that. So there's customizations that sometimes we need to just build a custom column into the system to calculate what percent you are heading towards with these numbers. And if that ever moves away from that ideal, sweet spot, then we can reforecast and check out what the problem is. So it gives you really, real deep insight into your exact project workflow. Now, contingency planning, I think that's part of it. If you are aware that you're going to overrun on budgets because the forecast and a few months of actuals are kind of leading you in that direction, if you have contingency costs, stashed away and they're available to bring into the project, then that's what you can do at that point is utilize, any contingency information. I hope that sounds like a reasonable answer.
It sounded good to me, Emily. Lawrence, you let us know if that helped you out. We have another question in here, but just to kind of double click on what Lawrence asked, if he was interested in having like Graitec help him build this out, like you said, custom columns and whatnot, is that something he would sign up for Graitec services or training for?
Yeah, I mean, if you're already using costs, and this is a question you have been unable to kind of work out for yourself, then maybe we just need some mentoring hours around that particular topic. If you're wondering straight out, you've never used cost and you need to get up and running with it, and you're just hoping that we can accomplish that, again, that can be something we can have a good meeting on. We can do a little bit of a demo and sort of maybe talk through that kind of issue and see if it really is going to meet your expectations. But I think we can. So that might be a from scratch training all the way through to get you up and running and to the point where you can actually accomplish and do those things. So, mentoring versus training, depending on where you are in your current cost journey.
Awesome. I love it. And this next question, I think, is more so about working with us. Obed says, is it possible for an individual to get trained in this software and join your implementation team, or better still work for you? I think, hey, listen, that's a compliment. We have tons of careers and stuff available on our career website. I'm going to see if I can grab that for you, but that is completely flattering. I love it. It might take me a
team members. Yes. Okay. So while Misty is getting that, I mean, get trained on this software. Yes. Now, if you're just looking for a general starter pack, there is some help documentation training out there. It gives you little 2-minute clips on the whole software. Heard from everybody who's taken it. It's great. It's great for refreshing your memory on certain things, but it's not going to substitute for what a real implementation team can do for you. But it's good for, maybe onboarding a few new employees, just bringing some people back into like, oh, I haven't made a change order in a while. How do I do it? So that's something you can jump into right away if you're not quite ready to go with a full implementation. So, and then of course, check out our website. Misty's posted our careers page. And if you're looking to work for us, welcome.
Yeah. And I did put in the chat, if you attended the webinar and you're like, it was great, I had to digest some information, went back, rewatched it, and you end up having some questions, you can send an email to webinars@graitec.com. I personally help monitor this, so if I see a question come in, I'll know which webinar you were attached to or you attended, and we'll get you connected with the right person with the right answers. So you can always reach out to me there. Or if you have any suggestions, you're like, Misty, I really would love to see a webinar about this topic. We are here for you. Like I said, we're here to serve you and your businesses. So let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And I think that is all the questions we have now. Again, thank you guys for joining us today. Emily, thank you. And I do hope that y'all join future webinars. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.